Well, here you have your new verb conjugator. It's probably the most complete verb conjugator that you can get. It's offline, which makes it great. It's not web-based. It's Excel-based, and it conjugates all the verbs correctly. You can even add verbs to your library of verbs, and it'll still conjugate them correctly, the way it's been programmed. So right now we have so even if the electricity goes off or the internet goes out, you can still do your studies. As long as your computer has juice on it, you can still do your verb conjugations for your studies. Here we have the verb to walk. So you enter in this field, you enter the verb in English in its infinitive form. And once you press enter, it translates the infinitive form of the verb into the infinitive form in all the 4 major Romance languages, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, and French, into 15, all 15 of the most known and popular and mostly used tenses, all of these tenses that you see here. Then you can also do it for also conjugates it for all 6 persons as well. So we will see. Let's go ahead and do another test with another verb, the verb to be. Now notice that if a verb has more than one verb in the other languages, it'll ask you to select which verb you want to use. So here it'll tell us in red the H1, that you can select an H1 if you want it to be to exist, or the nature of being, or to be located. So let's go ahead and select the nature of being or to exist, and there it'll have the verb in infinitive form and then conjugate it in all 15 forms. You choose the other verb, and notice that it changed the infinitive form, and it even got rid of both progressives, because to be located really doesn't have a conjugation for its progressive form. The first person doesn't have the imperative forms, since the imperative forms are for the second person and beyond. Okay? So let's try with another verb. There's some other fun stuff in here. This verb conjugator also does the intransitive form or the affective form of the verb, and also reflexive form of the verb. So it's very complete. So let's try one that will do that. Oops, tapped that in the wrong place. Annoy. The verb annoy. That's a very fun verb. Notice that this one, actually let's go ahead and change this so you can see first what it looks like. It'll tell us here that this firm, and anytime there's some text here that explains certain cells, anytime you want to get rid of that, you just press enter until those texts are gone. So here it will tell us that this form has a reflexive form denoted by the R with a circle. And then it also has an affective or intransitive form or pronominal form that it's also called with that little squiggly thing. It also tells us that in the cells B20 and B21, we can actually change that. So right now, this is in the non-reflexive, this is the basic form of the verb. And then if we want to change it to reflexive, it'll be denoted by, not only will it highlight it'll make these green, which means that the ones that are green are in the reflexive form, and then it'll also have the R with the circle on these rows. So then it also tells us that it's in the intransitive form, which we can choose in cell B21. So let's try that. So we change that to that, and it'll say that in English we added subject pronoun it, so that the conjugation is better understood. So now they're all in the intransitive form. And notice also how it has these little arrows here. These little arrows mean they're very subtle. They're not made in a bright color. In other words, it's not emphatic, but it's just telling us that, for instance, in Spanish, it's more common to use the present progressive for the present tense instead of the present tense itself. So, like, instead of saying it annoys you, it's more common to say it is annoying you. In Spanish, te está fastidiando instead of te fastidia. Although both are used. And then Portuguese the same way. In Italian, the present tense is actually more used. And then it goes further in Italian to have another arrow saying the present perfect is actually used more commonly. In French, if it has that symbol, in French they're more interchangeable. We also have the French present participle for each verb, which is very useful for other grammatical redactations that you may use. So let's try it with something else. Let's try it with another verb. For instance, let's try another one that has several meanings. To deal. So notice once again, I put them all blank. We come here, we select, oh, this one has 3 meanings. So either to deal with or handle. The second meaning, to deal as in dealing cards or distribute. And the third one, to negotiate. So let's go ahead and try the third one this time. So it'll have these verbs and all the conjugations. Again, if you want to change the person, you can change it to the first person, second person, third person. Notice what happens with the third person. Third person, it has it in pastel yellow. It'll have a legend down here that tells us always remember for Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian, the third person singular, that conjugation is also the conjugation for the second person formal, you. So if you're talking directly to a person in the formal connotation, you would use usted in Spanish, você in Portuguese, and lei with a capital L in Italian. For French, if we go to the you plural, that's the second person plural, notice how in French the second person plural is the same conjugation. Down here it'll tell us, always remember for French, vous is used for both singular formal you and the plural you, whether it's formal or informal. Okay, so there you have it. And if you, we have 530 verbs in the database, and so that's basically all the verbs that you would use. We even have verbs like embarrass. So it has, which also has the regular form of the verb as well as the intransitive form, and it also has reflexive form of the verb, and you can take that off as well. So if you want to add your own verbs, you can go to the list of verbs down here, and you can add the verb in its infinitive form in English, and then you'd have to do your research to add it in Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, and French. But once you have the infinitive form typed just in these columns here, the first, these 3, then you would see the conjugation here. So you can either use a pull-down menu, or you can type it in, and you can keep on adding to the continual database. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed it, and have fun.